So we're recording this together, and we have our teas. This is a tea session, and if you're listening, you're very welcome to pour yourself a cuppa. We all love a bit of tea. I'm Justin, and this is Laurie Keene, who is Dean of the Gregg Brandon School. And Laurie has also been trained as a core energetics therapist, which is a body-centered psychotherapy, and I believe trained with Jason Schulman in non-dualistic Kabbalistic healing at the Society of Souls, and has also been involved with the work of Continuum, which is a very beautiful, graceful movement of unfolding, if I can call it that. So thank you for having tea with me, Laurie.
I love having tea with you, Justin. Anytime.
Thanks. Well, the question that's with me now: what can healing do for the world, Laurie? What does walking the healing path do for the broader world?
That's a big question. That's very...
No pressure.
I think healing is essential for our world. And I think before I address that, I'd like to just kind of go back to an opening statement that you made about people who are aspiring to be healers. I've always held the belief that everyone's a healer, because I believe that healing is really a state of being, and it's the ability to be present and open and in non-judgmental curiosity, and really showing up for themselves and for others. So I don't hold like being a healer as something separate or special. I think being a healer really is part of our natural state, when we return to that. Just as I believe that we're generous, we embody generosity as part of our natural state too. So for me, kind of linking that to how is healing important in the world, or how can it support the world, it's essential, because what it is, it's deeply inviting us to come home within ourselves and to embrace all of life, as a sacred act. And I'm talking everything from, the grass outside of my window, and the trees and the birds, and people who are in profound forgetting, who are perhaps angry or lost. One of the things that I think is beautiful about the work that we do at the school is, as one progresses through the work, one really understands the importance of inclusivity of all of life, of our planet and beyond our planet. And what I keep being shown spiritually in my work, in terms of our evolution as a species, is, we're on the precipice of such great potential. And we are also being faced with some incredible repercussions and challenges of decisions that we have made historically, not just for the last 50 years or the last few hundred years since the beginning of the real technological age, but as a species. We have held, from my experience, we have held a sense of separation, as being separate from ourselves and from all that is. And it's been kind of that cataclysmic role of beliefs that I think have really brought us to this edge within ourselves. So I think, when we talk about, what is healing, the importance of healing in the world, and people who aspire to be healers, please, let's all take that up. Whether you're the person who's making tea, at your local tea shop, or you are a parent, or you are involved in business, or you're putting your hands on someone and channeling healing frequencies. All of these are essential to the healing that I think is really being called for at this point in time.
My first BBSH workshop, I remember one of the graduates, Françoise Bonal, or maybe she was a student then, she came up and introduced herself and said, I'm a healer, and my healing room is the boardroom because I work in business. So thank you for beautiful words, Laurie.
It's true.
To go further, what does it mean? What does it look like to be walking this path of consciousness, awakening, that kind of thing, in real life? Not with people who come to you for healing, but navigating the broader world. What does that look like?
So to walk the path, really, again, from my experience and having been consciously on this path for, well, since my 20s, since my mid-20s, means to take up the work of becoming conscious. And, I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday about addiction. And they were sharing that they grew up in a family system where it was important to be strong. And strong was defined as don't address the issue. Just kind of bear with it, bear with whatever life throws at you, but don't investigate it. And I was thinking about that last night when I was sitting in my healing room, and I was going, from all the people that I've worked with, thousands of people over the years, and I'm going to share this with this friend who had shared that for me, actually the definition of strength is somebody who really has the courage to go into those places, not to deny them, not to numb them, not to become what I call like a sleepwalker through your life. So it takes a lot of courage to say, I'm taking up the work of healing. I'm taking on that mantle of being a healer, whether it's in the boardroom like Francois or someone else. And to bring that, here's the thing, there's no separation. Healing isn't somebody shows up in your healing room, they lie down on the table, you run beautiful healing frequencies, and that's it. To really do the work means you are walking that path every day within yourself. Like, how do you respond to yourself? When you're angry or upset or disappointed in yourself. How do you respond to others when you find yourself just reacting to them unkindly, which is not a healing act? So what do you do with that? And for me, that's really the work of healing, is you take that back in. You reflect on it. You make peace with it. Maybe you trace back the origins for why you would even do that. We look at things like our defense systems or our negative belief systems or the negative messages that we've all received, whether they're cultural or within the family. It's like those are the things that over time really imprison us. And it's why I think people so often will just live their lives in denial rather than really being strong and saying, you know what, I'm going to go in. I'm going to dive into the water deeply within myself and within the consciousness of this planet and all the beings on this planet, and open my heart to heal. So I think that's very important. Yeah.
Thank you. Beautiful answer again.
And it's hard. You know,
And
it's hard. It's challenging.
Yeah.
You know, it's much easier just to grab a bag of potato chips or or something. We all have our somethings, you know, which is also okay for a moment. You know, I always say sometimes we just need time out. But it's important that we become conscious that we're just choosing time out rather than just kind of sleepwalking through our lives.
Sure.
One of my spiritual teachers, and it's, you know, some of the work we do in the school, would really kind of talk about how as a culture, and I'm not talking just Western culture, kind of almost global culture at this point in time, that we are well, it's interesting. I see two contrasting energies. I see people kind of going to sleep like Dorothy in the poppy field, a lot through our separation. And also at the same time, I see in contrast this huge burst of just really striving to wake up, wanting to wake up. And I think they're both essential, actually, at this time.
Sure.
You know?
How do you think that's different now compared with, well, let's say during the 80s when, from the sounds of it, the spiritual movements were starting to gain traction and become larger, and I think it's also when you started with Barbara. So I hear people say that times are speeding up, and I personally experience the passage of time as the same, although I do feel there's more energy around to transform with. So how do you perceive the current day, where we are now as a species or as a culture? What direction are we going in?
Well, I mean, I think that's still to be decided. I do think things are speeding up. Here's what I think. From again, I have to refer back to my own experience. So I really got into the whole. I mean, I'd always been spiritual, you know, really. And I mean, as a teenager, I was in encounter groups, you know, when I was in 10th and 11th grade, and I was always interested in, you know, what's going on here and why is there so much pain and suffering and how can we heal that. Really in the 70s is when I got into meditation and my deep spiritual work, and yes, that's when I met Barbara and began studying with her and began studying with other healers as well, and spiritual teachers. And my sense from then to now, there's a couple of things. One is, you know, sometimes at the beginning of kind of a wave, there's like this, there's this euphoria. You know, it's like, okay. And also, I'm a child of the '60s, so I rode that wave too. You know, the out in the streets and, you know, marching for peace and
The dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Absolutely. I was very much involved in that. Very much involved from really 10th grade on. And now I feel like there are these huge waves that are occurring, and a couple of things that I keep being shown spiritually is one is the negativity that has been held deeply seated within our energy consciousness systems, even on the cellular level, is coming to the surface. And people, I think, are experiencing that in just so many ways, so many uncomfortable feelings within themselves, or perhaps within their lives. And I think that's essential. I keep being shown that this is essential because this is part of the healing. You know, it's like things have to come to the surface in order to heal. And with that coming to the surface, then there's this space within us that's also being created at the same time, that spaciousness to experience the truth, the beauty, you know, that we are, and the absolute awareness of the consciousness and interconnectedness to all that is. You know, it's like walking by a rock and going, this is a being of consciousness. You know, this is not just an inanimate object, which we've often held, you know, as belief systems. And we have limited our experiences of this, really the miracle, you know, of being alive through that. So there's this spaciousness that's being created within us, not only in the physical world, but also connection to the spiritual world. And that's the other thing I keep being shown. I keep being shown this incredible light that is really being visited, you know, given to us at this time as a tremendous assistance. And all we have to do is just keep opening to receive it. You know, I mean, I think recent science has just discovered, I mean, there's like infinite number of universes. So really with that, I mean, how could we even begin to think that we are, you know, the only, you know, planet with consciousness out there? It's just, to me, it's an impossible thing, and it doesn't connect with my experience, you know, which includes so many different dimensions. So I think that's part of the purpose. Now, here's also the other thing I see about this change, okay, from the early 80s to now. And that is, okay, we had the euphoria. Now it's also, let's make it real. That's like picking up the hammer, you know, doing the daily work of transformation, both personal and transpersonal. And speaking of hammers, let me just close that door. My neighbor's doing some... So it's kind of like, I think we've gotten to a place of, you know, and this is, again, I think this is a huge part of what's happening. There's no escape, you know, and I think that's why we're being faced with things like, you know, climate change, or, you know, you read articles like, you know, by the year 2050, there will be no more fish. You know, the dying really of the coral reefs. And but we see that, you know, the fact that our population is, I think, expected to be at 9 billion by the year 2050. Before 1800, there was never more than 1 billion people on the planet at any one time, as far as our recorded history goes. So it's like we are being faced with these challenges and opportunities that we've never really had to consider, you know? And I think, again, the spiritual purpose, I'm always looking at, like, what is the deeper meaning of this? What is the spiritual purpose? Rather than just falling into fear or negativity, or, because it could be easy to do that. It's like, I think we are being given these as possibilities for us to do the work, to deeply come together in communion, in inclusivity, and then I just think we can create something really beautiful here.
Sounds good.
And I love that about, I don't know if you're familiar with Gregg Brandon's work, but I like Gregg Brandon.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he basically, you know, because people are going, it's done, you know, it's end of the world. And of course, they've been saying that forever. But he says it's not done. It's never done until it's done. I mean, we're creating this. So if we want to create something kind and loving and beautiful and open, we can do that. We absolutely have that capability. And it really starts with being kind and loving to the self. And I don't mean in terms of like entitlement or what some people might call selfish. We have to be kind and loving to ourselves. We're part of all that is. There's, and that ripples out. The more we accept ourselves, the more we can accept others. So
That sounds important.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question I now have. Could you say a little bit about, there seem to be competing philosophies for how to sort of navigate into the new era that maybe we're heading toward, or the new consciousness of humanity. One is, I will loosely call New Age, and might encompass things like law of attraction. It's the idea that we need to change our thinking to the kind of, in a way, purge ourselves of negative thinking. That's probably a key teaching, and there's variation about that, but that's one broad way, and the other way is I guess quite a therapeutic way. Lots of catharsis and processing of emotions, and sort of you have your chisel and sort of hammering away, and or maybe you're digging rather, and that's quite hard work as well. I wonder if there's like a middle way between, or just what your thoughts are on this, and how we can for ourselves and for the world as well, bring in what's coming and help ourselves heal. I guess it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We birth the new world by attending to our healing and transformation. That's the sense I get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. There's also philosophies that, first of all, I've traveled those two different philosophies within myself. Okay, and I know that there is a lot of. See, for me, it's like there's room for all of it. I don't think one just has to choose one or the other. Another philosophy is there is no past, there is no future, so don't even deal with any of that because it doesn't exist anyways. So focus on, like through meditation or whatever, just being right here, right now, which is also beautiful. But I feel, in the school, we really teach the path of personal transformation. And we teach the healing power of your story, your history, your life experiences. So I have certainly directly experienced so much healing within myself, having gone back and really done that work of going into the pain and the rage and the grief and the misunderstandings. And I've also, been with others where it's just, like you said, kind of purge the negativity, say your positive affirmations, just replace those negative tapes with positive tapes. And I've also sat in, meditation for really years where it was just focus on, the God within, focus on the God within. So I've really, I've learned from all of them. I've gained from all of them. I think anything that sets itself up as the way, okay, is holding separation. What I believe is more important than that is to begin trusting deeply within yourself. And it's almost a felt sense, of what resonates in you in terms of the work that you're drawn to do, whether it's to, follow the law of attraction. Maybe it's that for a year. And then you want to dive deep, deep, deep into the deep personal work, and heal, go back and experience that wound and the trauma surrounding it, because that's where we hold back so many of our inconvenient feelings that then get projected out, across the landscape of our lives, and very often in very destructive ways to ourselves and to others. As we heal that also heals it. And spend time in meditation or in silence, just being with the truth of what is. Spend time practicing not believing your thoughts, because ultimately it's all illusion anyways. That's another philosophy. So again, I really think as you start to do the work and you start to trust in your ability to feel within your body, this is your temple, this is your vehicle in this life, okay, for your experiences, you will know. You will know the work you're called to do at this time. Maybe the work you're called to do is to go lie on a beach for 5 months, and just become one with the waves. I think all of it's important. So I don't subscribe to one personal philosophical view.
As they say in year 4 at BBSH, you can have it all.
You can have it all. And I think that is fundamental to what we're teaching in the school. You are it all. You can be it all. You can have it all. And what is, in the 4th year, the focus is, what is your unique healership? How do you want to bring it into the world? And there's an infinite number of expressions of that, because there's an infinite number of souls expressing themselves here at any given time.
I don't personally feel any contradiction between what you just talked about, sort of an approach which is more like law of attraction, or an approach which is heavy healing work. I feel they're more like different ends of a spectrum. And one focuses more on what's light, and one focuses more on what's heavy. And I suspect we need a bit of everything at different times for different things.
Well, it's interesting, because from my experience, I often tell my students, from my experience, people typically come into the work from 2 different ways. They either come in having the transcendent experiences of the light, and then they say, you know what, I'll go into the mud now. I'll go into the inner landscape of my life and do what you're calling the heavy work of personal transformation. Or people come in and they do the personal transformation work, and then they start to experience those transcendental, experiences of spiritual light and the bliss and the ecstasy. I know for me, I was somebody who had to have the transcendental experience first before I was ever going to do this. That was very clear to me. I never knew I even really wanted to be here. I was planning for a long time. Really, just seeing the pain. I just ran across a letter my dad had written to me several years ago. And in the letter, he was describing when I was 4 years old, and we were at this park, and I went up to this lady, and she was sitting on a boulder, and I took her hand, and I asked her, if she was okay. And she said, yes. And I said, well, are you alone? And she said, no. She said, my family's just off walking, and they'll be back. And I said, okay, I just want to make sure you're all right. And then he said, literally right after that, I saw a woman who had one of those, back in the 50s, a lot of women wore kind of dead animals on their necks, like a fox or something.
Yeah.
And I went up and I asked her, did you kill that? You know, why are you wearing a dead animal on you? And I was very upset that she would do that. So I think very early on, and I think this is true for many children, you know, we come in and we're very sensitive and we have a sense of compassion and we have a sense of what is really held as sacred. And I think sometimes that gets covered. So for me, that pain that I experienced here as a very young girl, you know, was somebody left alone? Was somebody killing, you know, it was like I had to be shown through spirit the real beauty. I had to have the direct experience of the truth that's held within all of creation before I was willing to go in, you know, into the heavy stuff. But as you said, it is a spectrum, and it's all essential. It's all essential because it's all part of who we are. So, so I guess I would look at these, what are called competing philosophies, as if we imagine that this planet is this beautiful university, you know, and that we've come here to explore and to grow and to evolve. That these different philosophies are really different. I'm going to take this course now, you know, at this University of Life, and now I'm going to take this course, and they all connect. You know, I'm sure you know that, right? Going to school, it's like whether you're studying math or literature, or I mean, they all connect.
So, if you do take advantage of the deeply transformative work of the kind which is done at BBSH, what gifts does that give you as someone who can be with another in the context of healing? How does that help?
So for me, this is where it really becomes important. Because again, from my experience, we have the ability to meet and hold people only as far and as deeply as we've been able to meet and hold ourselves. So if someone comes to you for support, let's say, for example, they just have a lot of pain around, let's say, abuse. Okay, somebody who's had a lot of abuse. And maybe they have a lot of rage about that, or grief, or fear. If we have not touched those places within ourselves, because there's only one of us, you know? If we haven't touched those places within ourselves, then I think we are more likely to not be able to hold the space for our clients to go into those places. And, you know, having gone into some of those places within myself has given me the capacity to be able to hold people in those places and know that as they come through them, they're going to emerge with more of themselves, more awareness, and greater integration. Because those places of rage, you know, what we call the inconvenient feelings, rage, grief, fear, okay? Mm-hmm. We've just held those separate. We've suppressed those within ourselves. They're still there. And when we allow them to be, okay, and when we go into them, then we begin to lighten, and we begin to experience ourselves as more whole rather than as separate. So I do think that that's very important in one's capacity to be present with another and to really, deeply hold the space for them.
What does it even mean to hold the space in the context of healing or being with someone where there isn't necessarily words? It might just be...
Mm-hmm. Well, I always say, as a healer, okay, but remember, for me, that's the world. But let's just talk about it within this context, okay, of people coming to see you for support, healing support. Your job is to show up, be present, okay, don't have an attachment, an agenda, or judgments. So for me, holding space is the beauty of that. When one does that, okay, is that's when the miracles happen, because then you're open and you are following the soul of the client. One of the things that we also teach in the school is developing high sense perception. So that's the ability to perceive the subtle energies that aren't like just in what we would describe as the physical world. So where you start to block that ability is if you have an agenda. Gee, at the end of this healing, they better feel this way, or you have an attachment. Oh, I'm only a good healer if, their cancer heals or they, start to feel happy about themselves. Or judgments like, boy, I hope they don't do that. Or, you've totally blocked your ability to perceive and to be present, okay? But if you can do that, if you can hold those things in your awareness, no attachment, no judgments, no agenda, be present, show up and be present, okay, with your heart open, then you are going to be able to hold the space to allow your client to go where their soul needs for them to go, which is very different than what the personality may want. So as a person, my personality, if I have an agenda, might want something. The personality of the client, they might come in my room and say, I really want, I don't know, I want to get this job, But their soul might say, what I really need to do is I really need to come to a place to trust, okay, that the right job will come to me. So as a healer, if I have that capacity to hold that space for them, then that's going to give them the freedom, the permission that we all long for to allow the work to unfold within us. Most of us are conditioned and we are not free. We are not free, to be who we are. And being who we are is really following kind of the urgings and the guidance, within our own beings, within our souls. So I've done a lot of work with people who've had abuse, and typically, people who have experienced deep emotional or physical abuse have a lot of rage, and they don't have a whole lot of love for themselves. So having gone into that work within my own self, I can lovingly hold the space for them to express that which they never felt safe. They never had the permission. And that is deeply healing. Because those are places we usually judge as wrong, inappropriate, vulnerable, But I've watched people change in a half an hour just from being able to meet these places within themselves, and I'm there loving them in that. Now, if I hadn't gone into those places within myself, I might be really afraid of somebody's anger, you know, or, you know, catastrophic grief. But having traveled those territories within my own self, I understand the value of it, and the deep healing that it brings to the individuals. You know, I say, look, we all long to be deeply known by another. We all long to deeply know ourselves, and we all long to deeply know the other. And when you get into that kind of territory, that's where that meets. And it just opens the heart, you know? It opens us.
I'm remembering when I was a young wizard in my first year at Hogwarts.
I remember that too.
In the first class of the first year at Hogwarts. Is it okay to tell the story?
Yeah, I was thinking about that as I was.
So Laurie taught me by example of what it really means to hold the space for someone. I nearly passed out. I was about to faint after doing some intensive work, and Laurie was there with me as I was going under, and my vision was greying, and I was getting the tunnel thing, and the ringing in my ears was getting loud, and I was terrified. And what scares me most is to lose consciousness. It feels like dying. And even going to sleep is okay for me because the consciousness just shifts; it goes to somewhere else. But passing out, it's like the light is going out in a literal sense. So as this was happening more, I was feeling more terrified. And Laurie, she sort of ever so gently held my head and looked at me very softly. And spoke gently to me, maybe something like, "I'm here, it's okay." I don't remember the words. And I was going deeper and deeper into my reaction until, at the deepest point, I think I must have been at the cusp of losing total consciousness, and all I could see left was Laurie's blue eyes at the centre of my vision. Everything else had sort of greyed out, and the ringing was loud enough that I couldn't hear anything anymore. And I was just there, and there was the moment of feeling deeply that Laurie was there with me, sort of in a sense in me, or at least in the place that I was emotionally and energetically, but with no agenda. There was no forcing. It wasn't like she was trying to pull me back into the real world, or that she was trying to ward off the clouds of fear, or nothing like that. It was just being there with me, and something shifted, and I started coming back, and that was a gentle process to reintegrate. But wow, that single experience was the beginning of a healing journey of me and my body. But before that moment, I always had cold hands and cold feet. And afterwards, that's changed. I go about life now with warm hands and feet. And I learned the essence of what it is to be in a healing relationship with someone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my story of Laurie holding the space for healing.
I remember that moment, and we all have those places, and they're very young, and they're felt senses, You know, I mean, we are we are vast beings. You know, we're spirit. We came in. You were this little. You know, at one point in time, I mean, you were this little tiny baby, having huge experiences. You know, and that's what we often call, you know, events that kind of evoke the wound that we've come here to heal. And so these places, like you went in to, as you said, you know, it sounds like it changed something
It
for you.
shifted it for sure.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of courage to let go, to go in those places. And it's, you know, it is that border, because I don't want people losing consciousness. That is not the goal here, you know. And I'm very adept at not having people lose consciousness. Not on my watch. You know? And at the same time, yes, like traveling with you into those places. It's like soul retrieval. You know, going back into those places. It's like one comes through it. Again, it may not even be a cognitive awareness, but there's something that happens in that process. The first time I did deep emotional work was an Elizabeth Kubler-Ross workshop. And this is after, you know, that my illness in my 20s. I had so much anger. And we started hitting telephone books. And first of all, I thought, people are crazy to do this. I really did. I almost ran out of the room. I thought, what? Where am I? Which also, see, meeting those places within ourselves, again, helps us to hold the space for others. Because I see new students come in each year going, what are they doing? You know, with these batakas and hitting pillows. And I go, oh, I remember that. I remember thinking, these people are nuts. You know, well, okay, I thought they were nuts, but I still took up the thing that they used. It wasn't a bataka in those days, and started hitting the phone books. And kind of like you, at the end of the weekend, literally, I could not believe everything that came out of me. I felt like I was in my body, really in my body. And I realized, oh my gosh, during that whole illness, those whole 4 years, I wasn't in my body. So by having the permission to have those feelings, made it okay for me to be in. And really started, you know, it created a big change in me too. So, yeah, these are the places, you know. And many people, probably most people, are afraid to go into them. But once you start to go into them, you realize the value, I think, because you experience it within yourself. And it makes it easier. And I also want to say, too, that process, I don't know if you experienced this, Justin, but certainly for me over the years, processing has shifted, you know, where I don't need to do that like I did at the beginning. Now when I touch those places within myself, I really, typically what I'll do is I'll go into what we call the witnessing, asking, and experiencing part of the self. So while I'm still having those feelings, those very, very young feelings, I have this capacity now, which is also what we get, like having done the work you did, because your container gets bigger. You know, you can hold more of yourself. So now I can hold my process and feel it to that same intensity, but not lose the kind of overall awareness of what's going on. I think that changes. Have you experienced that?
For sure. I've carried on with core energetics process groups after graduating,
Oh.
and my experience of my own process has, sure, it's become gentler. It feels like during my years at BBSH, and also the bit of therapy I had before, and I guess a short time after, the period of a few years, I was plucking the low-hanging fruits of my process tree, and it's like the most obvious layers have peeled back, and the healing journey continues, and God knows there's plenty more to go. But the continuing healing process isn't. It's not really dramatic anymore. The heavy stuff, I think, is largely lifted. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Well, I agree. I don't know about if it's lifted as much as, and perhaps, but also I think the way that you experience it may not be as heavy as it,
right.
even though it might have that felt sense still, because the wound is the wound, you know. But here, and this is where I think, you know, if we talk about the beautiful different philosophies, right, that we have to choose from, where have seen people get caught in the work of personal transformation, okay, is when they then make the story, okay, again, which is a beautiful tool, the reality. And they start going just in circles with it. You know, it's like they're always raging, you know, or it's kind of like their fall to, rather than moving through it and being able to hold it with a greater capacity. So I have seen people get attached, you know, to expressing their process in that way that's not really serving them. It's not bringing them more. It's kind of keeping things in place. Do you understand that?
Sure. It becomes habituated.
Exactly. Becomes habituated. Yeah, absolutely.
One last question to close this with. Maybe it'll be a technical question, I'm not sure. It is from my list of questions. I had a sneaky peek when you were answering. Remind myself what I wrote.
What you were doing.
So you've spoken beautifully about what it means to be with another and to hold space for their healing. From my perspective, this is a fairly it's kind of yin, or passive. It's the being. And you teach at Barbara Brennan School also, to put it simply, ways of doing in healing. Active skills, which where the healer is kind of co-creator or a participant, and not just a witnesser of the healing, but you know, we do stuff with our hands. So where does that come in? Where's the space for doing in a practice which is mostly about the being, or that's the foundation of it at least?
What I tell my students is this: you're learning these incredible skills. You're learning the energetic healing skills, you know, hands-on healing work. You're learning your high sense perception that's beginning to develop. You are learning psychological skills, spiritual skills to support. Okay, so you're creating this beautiful toolbox, and you put them all in there. Okay, so that they really become integrated into you. So for me, it's like there's a balance between the yin and yang expression in healing as what's needed. Yes, I know in terms of Brennan healing science, we're considered a lot more active than some other healing modalities, where somebody's the channel and they just receive the information or the frequency and it goes into the person, and you know. Yes, as a Brennan healing science practitioner with my high sense perception, I am perceiving what's going on moment to moment, you know, within my client, within myself, with our spiritual guides. that are present and helping to guide the process. And if we have this beautiful toolbox and it's integrated in, okay, then I'm following the soul of my client, then I'm trusting and allowing whatever skill, whatever the doing is that wants to emerge, will emerge organically. It's not like I have to say, okay, I'm going to do this healing. Now, I'm going to do this skill. I might say that, and I might get started, and it might become very clear, oh, no, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Because, again, I've given myself over. So kind of the yin-yang, it's like I am a participant in the healing relationship, okay? And I've also given myself over to energy and consciousness that includes me, but is greater than me. So the doing arises out of the being. Where, again, I think people can get into trouble is where they go into the doing without the being. And then they've lost that ability to really follow the flow of the healing. And I'll do things that, and I'm sure our students do it and graduates do it too. It's like, healing's a creative process. So we have this body of incredible skills in the school. And beyond that, as you begin practicing, new things start coming through you. Because that's also the active process of being. Like I was working with somebody, let me just see if I can recall this. Well, I'll tell you two examples of this, which aren't skills within the school. One is I participated in a research project probably about 15 years ago. And it was a double-blind study with AIDS patients with advanced AIDS. And it was 100 healers around the country, different modalities. And basically you were given a photo and symptoms that the person was experiencing, and you worked with them every day for a week. And then I think you had a week off, and then you received a new person. So that the same client had several different healers working on them. But one thing that was interesting, this totally just came through in that healing. It wasn't something I'd learned at our school. Was I was working on the virus, and my guide came in and said, just rewind the history within this physical body. In other words, take this body back to a time before it had the virus. So I did that. I don't know what the outcome of that was, but another case was I had a client who had a pituitary tumor. It was benign. It was the second one she'd had. I didn't know her when she had the first one, but this one had become very complicated, very tangled on the pituitary. And they told her, we're going to do surgery, but it's not, we're not going to be able to get this whole tumor out because of how it's wrapped. So I gave her healing the day before her surgery, and my guides came in. Again, this was just being in the moment. The doing came through the being. My guide said, okay, all I want you to do is to extract the life force from the tumor. That's it. So I did. I went up there, allowed the energy to flow through my hands, and with my intention and in the doing, just extracted the life force from the tumor. The following day, she went for surgery, and they went up her nose with like an incision and a little vacuum. And after the surgery, they said the tumor was dead. It completely unraveled. The whole tumor came out in one. So it's a blend. It's a doing and being. And I guess here's another thing that's really important in terms of what we teach in the school is by not being completely passive as the healer, you are also responsible. So you're responsible for the work you are doing. And my ability to perceive, I see, I hear, I feel, and I know. Those are the senses that I use on a regular basis. When I'm working with someone, okay, I'm noticing, I can see that whatever's going on in their energy consciousness system, and then I can adjust, okay, whatever frequencies I'm using or whatever skill I'm using as appears to be needed in the moment. So that's a little different than some modalities where I'm just going to channel and whatever comes through is going to come through. I'm actually going to perceive what's happening and then adjust what I'm doing through my ability to perceive. I hope that's clear.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Good.
Mm-hmm. Is there time for you to do a meditation for us?
Yeah. You know what? We could do like a 5 to 7 minute one. Is that good for you?
Sure.
Okay, great. Yeah. And thanks for asking, because I think it's so essential. Even taking a few minutes in our day to go inward and be quiet. And what I'll do at the end of our short meditation here is I'll just ring my favorite bell.
It's a lovely bell, Laurie.
Love my bell. Love the sound of it. Okay. So, for all of those who are watching, listening at this time, just going to invite you to bring your awareness to your breath. Deep awareness into your breath. And just follow it as it travels through your body. The ability to become aware and to follow your breath, I find, is one of the easiest ways to become quiet and to come back into the center of the self. You may notice as you track your breath, it may take you to parts of yourself that are relaxed and open, or perhaps anxious and held. Just be with your breath and just allow whatever awareness comes to you to be here. Breathing brings us home in our awareness to this beloved temple that we call the body, the temple for the self. Now I invite you to move your awareness from following the breath within your body to the center of your heart. For truly all the work that one does in one's life arises from a longing to love and be loved, to feel the miracle and joy that is present within the moment. So I invite you just to bring your awareness deep into the center of your heart. And be with whatever feelings might be here in this moment. Might be loving, might be sadness, might be joy, might be anger. Just invite you to be with what is the center of your heart at this time. And now, in this place, in the center of your heart, is the doorway. The doorway into the deep peace that exists within all of creation. And this doorway, this gentle doorway into the communion with all that is, all life. And I invite you, letting your awareness sink even more deeply into the center of your heart. See if you can open to this place of quiet peace. See if you can feel within you, in this place, the simple communion with all that is, unified. One streaming expression of light, of love, of peace. Feel this within you and around you, 360 degrees. Allow this awareness to emanate like the rays of the sun. This streaming consciousness nourishing you, nourishing all that is, all life. Now I invite you, there's one more step here today. I invite you, if you choose, to bring into the center of your heart, into this place, someone or something you are in conflict with, whether it is a belief or a person in your life. I invite you to bring them in to this place of peace within you. It might be an issue or a person. And just to allow it to be here with you in this quiet peace together for this moment in communion. No longer separate. Received as one. Good, and now allow this person or this issue just to step out and away from the center of your heart, having received this peace with you. And this practice is one that you can take into your lives. A few moments a day when you find yourself struggling with something or someone, just to take the time to follow your breath, come into your heart, come into that, through that door, into this quiet place of peace, and just to bring whatever that is deep into the center of your heart as well for healing. And you can also bring you into the center of your heart for healing. Now returning your awareness to your breath. See if anything has changed within yourself with your breath in this beautiful body, this temple. And we will come to completion, the sound of the bell.
Mm.
It's beautiful to be with you, Justin. Always.
Thank you, Laurie, for sharing tea and wisdom with us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just always moved by you. You know, you are just like some pretty special gifts, really, of this incredible bright mind and this acute sensitivity and a capacity to love. It's just really, really nice.
Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome. Okay.
So I suppose some closing remarks. If anyone is interested to hear more from Laurie, either from her or the School of Healing at which she teaches, the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, the website is barbarabrennan.com, and hopefully we can navigate this onto YouTube, in which case we'll put info at the bottom. So I'd encourage anyone who feels like this has resonated something within them to join up for the mailing list, because Laurie is going to be doing more teachings online and teleclasses. There's Student for a Day where you can come and bask in the energies of the school for a day. That's lots of fun things like that.
And they can also connect on Facebook.
Of course, Facebook.
Something you do.
Yeah. So, in other words, if you would like more, there is more.
That's right. Always more. Right. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you so much, Laurie. Have a good day.
Lovely having tea with you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.